Hello, everyone, and welcome to When Women Believe. I am your host, Tanisha Lachey, and as you can see, I have another amazing guest. This is Dr. Darlisha Doss, and so today we're going to talk about quite a bit of things. And so if you're here, we first want to take out a few seconds to make sure we're sharing the live. We just want to make sure that you guys are in the building. So if you are seeing us, if you can hear us and see us, please give us a shout. We definitely want to know that you are in the building. But we first want to just make sure that everyone can see us and hear us. So we're just going to take a second to make sure that you are there. Okay. So I think we have some folks that are here excited. Okay. Well, Darlisha, I do know you from my home church, and super excited to meet you, get to know you and your family, because I know you're not necessarily here from St. Louis, right?
No, I am a transplant, is what you all would call it, a transplant. I'm not from St. Louis. No.
Okay. That's,
Yes,
so where are
yes.
you from?
So born and raised Gary, Indiana. Shout out to all of my Gary, Indiana folks out there. I like to say home of Jackson 5 as well.
Yes.
We're really close to Chicago,
Mhm.
but a native of Gary.
Oh,
Yes.
perfect. Yeah, because that's what us automatically. I think of Jackson 5. I'm a
Uh-huh.
huge, Michael Jackson fan. So when I think of Gary, that's the only thing I think about is Michael Jackson. And I'm just like, okay, that's what we know as being
Yes.
home. So perfect. Love
Yeah.
that. And so I know you from church, like I said, but I definitely have always admired your page or seen you or slightly stalked you on Facebook when it comes to a lot of your fitness journeys. I've seen a lot of the things that you have done fitness wise and being able to just stay fit and do CrossFit. And then I've seen you with your husband and your children, just all these different things. And so I really just admire the journey that you have, the profession that you have, and just how you carry yourself overall. But I
Thank you.
do want to give you an opportunity because there's a lot of things that I don't know and some of our guests don't know about you. So could you just briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, I think you covered a lot of them already, but I wear a lot of hats.
Mhm.
So I am a professor in public health here. I moved about 2 years ago here to St. Louis. So my husband and I and our girls, we moved here from Terre Haute, Indiana, and we both are teaching at St. Louis University.
Okay.
I have the pleasure of training our future students in public health. So, training our students to be public health practitioners. So, I'm a professor. I've been teaching for over 10 years. It's hard to believe that. So, I've been in public health for over 10 years. And I love the work that I get to do, both
Mhm.
inside and outside of the classroom. So that is one hat that I wear in terms of being a professor. I'm also a certified health education specialist. So I also get to work closely in the community to help various organizations maybe do more community work in terms of how to improve health outcomes within community spaces. So even if it revolve around collecting data or helping them to maybe plan programs, do
Mhm.
evaluation in the community. I'm also able to help with that. But outside of that, as you have already noted, I am also a wife.
Mhm.
Shout out to my husband. I love that man, wonderful person.
Shout
He is my
out.
support system. I am also a mother to two beautiful girls as well, Olani and Ife. They keep me going every day. But those are like my top hats. I'm a mentor. I serve in many different spaces. And so I count it a blessing to be able to be used to serve in different capacities. And so, yes, professor, wife, mother, daughter, friend, mentor. I wear many hats. And so that's just a little bit about me. I love all things health, public health. I can talk about it all day. And I know it connects greatly with my lifestyle, but there's some connection there in terms of what led me into public health, what led me into this journey of even studying health behaviors and being passionate in terms of helping others to improve their health as well.
So tell me a little bit about it, because I know you said that's like your thing that you can talk about the most. And some people do have those certain topics. It's like I can never stop talking about this. Like me, food. Food, I can talk about it all day. Where are we eating? How can we get more food?
Yeah.
What's the best food? Food, music, those are my jam.
Yeah.
But what really sparked like your interest when it comes to like public health or behavioral health?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know about public health, first shout out to all the public health practitioners out there.
Yes.
Our job is not easy, but it's definitely rewarding.
Mhm.
Our focus at the beginning of the day is all about prevention. So, how do we improve the health and well-being of our communities and populations?
Yeah.
As you know, that there are many adverse health outcomes within, excuse me, our communities. And
Yeah.
there are a number of factors that contribute to those adverse health outcomes that we see. I have taken, I guess, the path of looking at health behaviors. How do we improve and promote health behaviors as a way of addressing some of these health issues that we see? As we know, if you all don't know, many chronic health conditions that we see today, I believe like over 80% can be prevented
Hmm.
through, developing and engaging in healthy behaviors. So
Hmm.
we can prevent and or delay many chronic health conditions that we see today within our communities. And so with that, I have really focused in on how can I promote, healthy behaviors? How can I work in communities to improve healthy behaviors? There are a number of factors that go into that.
Mhm.
We talk about behavior change. It is not easy, right? If we're
Yeah.
talking about helping individuals to engage in these type of behaviors, there are things we can look at the individual level, but we also have to look outside of the individual, such as their environment. So
Yeah.
I can come in and provide education all day, but if these communities do not have the resources that they need to engage and carry out those healthy behaviors, they're probably going to be less likely, right, to engage in those behaviors in the first place. I can come in and teach and talk about the importance of nutrition and
Mhm.
physical activity, but if you don't have the resources to do so, if your community lacks those resources, for example, if you don't have availability and accessibility to healthier foods, you're probably less likely to eat healthy. If
Yeah.
you are struggling financially, right, you may have to travel outside of your community to get healthier foods, you're probably less likely then
Mhm.
to engage in that particular behavior.
Yeah.
So on the public health side, we then think about how do we help individuals and communities address these barriers that we see. And
Mhm.
so that includes us then developing more innovative programs in these spaces, being creative in our approaches, but we can't only like talk about it. We also have to make sure that our communities have the resources that they need to actually carry out those particular behaviors that we're focusing in on.
Mhm.
That's more so like the professional side. But,
Mhm.
personally, I have gone through things from an early, during my
Mhm.
early childhood, where I dealt with being overweight and obese myself. And so I have a story there. And some of you may have already seen some of my pictures, posted on social media. But as a young child, I dealt with being overweight as well as going into being obese.
Mhm.
I still remember and can recall in grade school not being able to climb the rope in gym class.
Yeah.
And while that's a skill, right? You have to know, like, okay, there's a method, technique to climbing the rope. I literally couldn't pull myself up because I was just big, I was
Mhm.
overweight. And I remember asking my mother, like, how did you lose weight after you had children? And she told me more so about nutrition and how she started moving her body. And
Yeah.
at a young age, I started to do the very same thing. And so I transitioned to, educating myself, learning more about how could I engage in healthier behaviors to help me lose weight as well. So
Mhm.
that was something at an early age that I had experienced. But fast forward, throughout my adult years, in 2020, I was diagnosed with a health condition, having mitral valve prolapse, and regurgitation.
Mm-hmm.
In summary, it's pretty much just my valve in my heart isn't working, how it should be. And so
Yeah.
I have to monitor, that every year with my cardiologist. Well, heart disease runs in my family.
Yeah.
And so I had to then, of course, that was more motivation for me in terms of engaging in healthy behavior. So as you talk about nutrition and moving my body, we talk about stress and all of that, I had to be very intentional because for me, it was no longer optional. This was me fighting for my life,
Yeah.
because I am now chasing longevity. I am chasing how to be here for many, many more years,
Right.
not having to be on medication or have surgery. The benefits of engaging in healthy behaviors have been truly rewarding for me, thank God. So, present day, I don't have to be on medication or anything like that. As I work with my team of doctors, just the behaviors that I have developed and have maintained over the years have been so beneficial for me. So, as I said, I can talk about that all day, but that's kind of like my little
I
testimony
love that.
in terms of, why I'm very passionate in this particular field in terms of looking at health behaviors.
Mhm. I love that. I appreciate you being vulnerable and telling your testimony because I think it really just helps people to understand like this is something you actually can do. It is attainable that you can do. And it's like, not only did I have this, like you were saying, in my childhood, this is something I had to develop because I didn't even realize later on in life I had lost the weight and now I have other health issues. And so
Yes,
now it's like, it can't just be that one time thing of coming out of childhood. This is something you put into practice every single day. And I know this sounds very shallow, but the thought of it is that I love that mean you are, the fit people or what we would consider the slim people. Because a lot of times people say, oh, well, I always tell people when I was talking to you about training folks,
yes,
I would say the one thing I tell people is skinny doesn't always mean like fit and healthy. It's like sometimes even though you have a smaller frame, it's like, no, I literally still have to have certain behaviors
absolutely.
in life. And so I just really appreciate you being vulnerable because some people just think, well, oh, I'm never going to get to be her size. It's not necessarily a size, it's a
Um,
behavior.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, and we are all made differently, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
my physique might not look like the next person.
Hmm.
I'm not chasing that. I'm
Right.
chasing things that are going to be rewarding for me in terms of longevity,
Right.
my life, and being able to be here for the many years
Mhm.
that God has already outlined and planned for me to be here. I don't want to cut those years short,
Right.
because of my own doing. So, again, thinking about how I can engage in those, healthier behaviors. That's part of my why.
Hmm.
I know we talked about that too.
Yeah.
Motivation can get you started, right?
Hmm.
But what's going to keep you going, even when life throws curveballs,
Right.
what's going to keep you going? And for me, it has really been digging into my why.
Hmm.
This is not an option for me.
Yeah.
To me, it's all or nothing,
Hmm.
in terms of my health. I don't look at it as an option. And so that's what keeps me going on those days. Hey, when I don't necessarily want to get up in the
Hmm.
morning,
Right. Yeah.
or I may not feel like meal prepping, for the week.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I know those things are going to help me, and they are even now, again, just knowing that I don't have to be on medication, I don't have to have
Hmm.
surgery, that has been a blessing. And so for me, that's enough to keep me going,
Right.
in this particular path. Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah, because me and you both have and talked in past conversations. It's like motivation is not enough.
It's
Motivation is
not.
not enough at all. It's like
No.
it's not gonna cause you to have certain habits. And I know one time the pastor had preached something about changing, and some people can
Mhm.
really know that it is life or death, and they still won't choose to have the correct behaviors. And so I'm definitely looking forward to us having more conversations. For those that are watching, feel free to, let us know that you're here. We're just going to stop for a second. And some people have already said hello. Hey, mom. Hey, Dee. Hey, Kim. Just want to make sure that we do see your comments. So feel free to, comment in the chat. We can definitely see your comments as we're speaking. We want to kind of just bring you up and bring you into the conversation, because this is some things that I really wanted to talk about, is how we can overcome a lot of the obstacles, a lot of the obstacles that are there. Hey girl, hey Netta, a lot of the obstacles that are out there is because, we do have a lot of different things that's going on, as far as
Yes.
finances, St.
Yes.
Louis, as you see, and it might have been the same in Gary. I've never lived there, but St. Louis definitely has that redlining and food desert. And sometimes
Absolutely.
hard, to
Mhm.
get the things that you need. And just to be honest, when I lived in the city with my grandmother, it was like 45 minutes to get to a grocery store. My grocery
Mhm.
store is 5 minutes, if that. And plus, there's a farmer's market. There's a Whole Foods by me. And even if with saying that, I'm pretty sure there's someone in the chat. I can feel you in my bones. Someone's in the chat saying Whole Foods is expensive, sis. So it's you know
Yes, it can be. Absolutely.
so it's like, I hear, all the barriers that people are saying. It's like, getting that burger on the dollar menu
Oh,
versus getting that salad. That's real conversation of, right, I want to be healthy, but the way my
yes.
checking and savings is set up, it's
Right.
different. Thank you, D. I
Yes.
know I'm not the only one, but D, listen, guys, I'm telling you, it is. It's just like it's there and it's real. So thank
Yeah.
you guys for in the comments, because I definitely want to have you a part of the conversation. But Darlisha, I really want to kind of talk about,
Yeah.
behavioral health and goals, because that's where
Yeah.
we want to help motivate people today, and using your expertise to help us to kind of just let people know, because we talked about public health and behavior health. I really want to be able to give people a good definition of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
So, how would you define what behavioral health is?
Yeah, so as we talk about health behavior, literally these are actions that
Mhm.
impact, your health outcomes.
Yeah.
And those behaviors can vary. You can talk about examples from engaging in physical activity to sleeping habits, you name it, it varies. So any actions that can impact your health outcomes is
Mhm.
what we're referring to when we're thinking about health behaviors.
Mhm.
And there are a number of factors, right, that impact health behaviors. I
Mhm.
mean, at the individual level, we can talk about, your attitudes, your views, your beliefs as it relates to a behavior in the first place. The
Mhm.
mindset is so powerful. So even thinking about how you view a behavior. So let's talk about physical activity. If
Mhm.
you go in already defeated, that this is going to be challenging before you even start,
Yeah.
it may be challenging for you to actually carry out that behavior, that goal that you have in terms of
Mhm.
engaging in more physical activity if you're already going in defeated,
Yeah.
right? So your attitudes, your views, those are some factors right there at the individual level. It could be your knowledge, right? Some people don't know the benefits
Mhm.
associated with those particular behaviors. There are other factors outside of the individual, which you started talking about, the environment that
Yeah.
plays a major role, right? So even thinking about, we can provide the education, but do you have the resources
Mhm.
to carry out that behavior? Eating healthy, we talk about this all the time, can be expensive.
Yeah.
How can you make those healthier choices even with a limited budget? Right? There are ways around that depending on where you shop. But even then, we have to look at the environment, because people
Mhm.
may have to travel outside of their community to then even get to a grocery store.
Right.
That may not be their reality. So we may then think about, how do we have, more gardens within the community? We have different farmers markets, things like that, or mobile markets going into these food desert areas, as we're
Mhm.
thinking about addressing some of those environmental barriers there. But there are a number of factors that can impact, your health behavior. And a lot of the ones that we see at the individual level deals a lot with mindset, attitudes, beliefs
Mhm.
right away, and how you view that particular behavior before you even engage in that behavior. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that. I know that isn't one of the
Mhm.
questions I was going to start talking about, but I
Yeah.
love this topic.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, because I'm really big on mindset, like a
Yeah.
growth mindset, versus having a fixed mindset.
Hmm.
Can you talk about, like, maybe just an example, if someone's talking about, let's just take food, or we can choose anything. How can we, help our mindset based on the environment? Because a lot of times the environment isn't going to change at all.
That's
Sometimes people
right.
are gonna, they might have the same job, live in the same house, same area. They're not building a Whole Foods or a farmer's market by
Mm-mm.
me. Maybe I can tell you right now, I have a brown thumb. There's no green thumb here. There's no garden out here. I tried one time in this
Yes.
house to do tomatoes, and a deer took a bite out of it, and that was the end of my garden journey right there. But how can we help people really change their mindset so they can, like, get to the goal that they're really looking for? Like, how can we do that?
I think that's going to vary for each individual,
Yeah.
because that depends on how that person is viewing the behavior. If they already have
Mhm.
barriers,
Yeah.
that's helpful for us to know as we're going in and maybe working with them. Like, what are some perceived barriers to begin with, or, real life barriers? And that would be
Mhm.
helpful for us. But in terms of your mind, I like the conversational mindset,
Mhm.
because that is something that we can change and we have control over the way that we view things, right?
Mhm.
Even with the challenges in place, right? Do you believe that you can carry out that behavior, right? So there may be challenges in terms of being able to, I don't know, grocery store, going to a grocery store and purchasing healthier foods. Do you have options available to you? It may not come from Whole Foods. Maybe you're going to, I like Aldi.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Okay. Even going to like Aldi, what are
Mhm.
some food options that you can purchase, and they will be a little bit cheaper compared to going to like a Whole Foods,
Mhm.
perhaps,
Yeah.
right? So even with that, there are ways for us to think about maybe preparing lower cost, healthier meals that could be helpful for the individual as well. But
Mhm.
I think, given some of the barriers that individuals or communities may be facing, we have to, identify those and then think about ways that we can help them overcome those behaviors. But in the mindset, thinking more mentally, individually, I talk a lot about attitudes and your beliefs, as it relates to that behavior. And
Mhm.
as I stated before, how do you perceive that in the beginning? Your mindset, how you perceive that behavior is going to impact whether or not you engage in that behavior.
I like that. I
Mhm.
love that. That's really good. And so when it comes to the different principles, like, and when it comes to behavioral health, and since we are talking about fitness and we are talking about overall health goals, how can we apply the principles that are of behavioral health to really give us, success in those areas? Like, if I'm like, hey, I want to have a fitness goal, I want to lose this amount of weight, or, just some people, getting fit isn't it. I just want to be here. I want to be around. How can I just have a healthy life so I can get off this medication, so I can feel like I can get around and be more mobile than, I am? Because I think a health journey just shouldn't just be how you look. It's like just
Oh,
overall health. How
yeah.
how can those principles of behavior help us reach those goals?
Yeah. Again, I think some of the things we talked about is even like goal setting,
Hmm.
and having smaller goals to help you reach some of those long term goals that you may have for yourself.
Hmm.
And you can build upon, current habits that you maybe already have in place. You don't have to always start, from scratch with a particular behavior. So, for example, if it's, let's take physical fitness. So we're thinking about physical activity. Maybe you're already walking.
Hmm.
Okay. How can we help you then maybe add on additional time? Maybe you want to add 5 or 10 minutes, or you want to, exceed a mile or two, add on to what you're already doing. So
Hmm.
thinking about how we can build upon some of those current habits that you have will be helpful. With your goals, be realistic with the
Yeah.
goals that you're setting for yourself. For example, if someone was sedentary, it may not be a smart goal to go from being sedentary to, completing a marathon within a month, right? we want to be realistic in the type of goals that we identify for ourselves.
Right.
So maybe if you are sedentary, meaning that you get little to no activity per day, you may have a smaller goal of just maybe getting up to move 10 minutes today, and then you start to build upon that as you go throughout the week, and then before you know it, you maybe can go a little bit further, throughout the next weeks. But again, being realistic in the goals that you set, also understanding that you don't have to have these really large goals right away. You can start small and then build upon those goals, right? As you continue throughout your journey. That will also be beneficial, as you're thinking about maybe making some changes, to your particular behavior. So I would say like those are major ones to start out with as you're thinking about, okay, what are some principles that I can apply as I'm trying to move forward and, maybe engage in more healthier behaviors.
I love that. Some other people have chimed in. People are agreeing with Aldi's being a good produce section. So for those that have
Absolutely.
Aldi's that's close by, as far as the pricing, it is a good place to go. It's definitely not as expensive as a Whole Foods. You can definitely go there. And then, hey, Dr. Tara, glad you're enjoying the discussion.
Yes, and I love me some Aldi, and I shop there, personally speaking, for my family. You can find really, really great deals. I mean, they have a lot of fresh produce there, just even knowing where to shop in the stores. Ideally speaking, as we're thinking about health, we want to stay away from more processed foods and get more of those fresh, fruits and vegetables for yourself. Absolutely. But we love us some Aldi over here in my house.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes people do get a bad rap when people hear about Aldi's because they're just like, oh, well, it's not Snooks or it's not Dealbergs, it's not Whole Foods. But it's like when you actually go to one, you're like, this is fresh produce. Like, I think in my mindset, there was this negative thought process around Aldi until, well, when I got on and started paying my own bills, I was like, let me go up here and see what they got because we are here struggling, so let me go see what they have. But I was really shocked to see that they did have really good produce that was there. And so it is one of those different things of, knowing where to go can definitely help you out in those areas of saying, okay, I do want to have less processed food because everything in certain areas is processed food. There should be no reason we should be really eating canned soup. Like if it's meat in a can, something isn't right about that. But a lot of us have talked about, those type of things. And so we do have some questions in the chat. So let's see what we got here. So we got Kim, having some health issues, needing to get more improved. What you suggest I should get some more physical activity. What are your thoughts?
In terms of how to be more physically active? Again, understanding what you can and cannot do. Maybe again, you may start small, in what you're doing. There are different exercises available. If you like to walk, I would say start small with walking. And there are different apps out there that you can track in terms of, how far you're going. And that could be a little challenge for yourself each day. But if you're like, Darlisa, I don't like, going outdoors or walking, or maybe I don't have like a treadmill, there are different exercises you can do in the house, like chair exercises, yoga you can do. It just depends on, I don't know if there are any limitations regarding the individual, or Sister Kim, I think, who asked the question. But I think just starting small in terms of your activity and doing something that you enjoy. Right. I think that would also be beneficial as well in terms of being able to maintain that over time. We don't want to maybe engage in something that we completely do not enjoy because we are probably less likely to continue doing that in the future. So if you are able to walk and you like walking, do not underscore walking. Walking is so powerful within itself. So 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can continue to build upon that each day for yourself, or however your goals are set. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
Darlisha, I'm going to ask another question, but it does seem like it's getting a little bit. Does it dark in her area for seeing you? It just looks like since the sun has went down, it looks like it's getting a little dark. I can see from the computer screen, but just FYI,
Okay.
if there's a light
Okay.
you want to turn on, you certainly
Okay.
can, and I'll bring up another question while we're here. And so,
Okay.
one of the other questions, you can go ahead, and so
Okay.
I'll talk to
Okay.
Kim and go from there. So,
Okay.
Kim, one of the things that you can do a lot of times when it comes to the exercise, oh, that's going to be so much better for the exercises that you can do. When she was talking about, Darlisha was talking about the chair exercise and yoga. A lot of times you're kind of thinking, well, what should I do if I'm in the chair? A lot of these things can be done on YouTube. You can get your chair, you can do the workouts at home, and then you can also look on YouTube and just look up chair exercise, or you can look up so much better, or you
All right.
so much better, or you can
Yes.
look up yoga, different things of that nature. So looking at things online, you can definitely take those exercises, those tips. So if you're just like, I'm walking, I want to start walking while it's warm, but when winter hit, we in the house, Kim. So
Okay.
you can always find those things on YouTube. There's so much workout
Absolutely.
exercises on YouTube that you can do as
Hmm.
well.
Yes. Bands, you name it. There are just so many options that you can
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
And we don't have to overcomplicate it either,
Right.
right?
Right.
So just keeping that in mind as well.
Okay. One more question. So this is really just talking about what seniors can do after menopause. Hey, mommy. Thank you for your question.
That is not my area of expertise. Unfortunately, that is not my area of expertise.
Hmm.
So I would defer talking about menopause.
Hmm. So, mommy, I'm gonna have to bring somebody that can bring some comments about menopause as well. But
Yes.
still,
Yeah.
the lot of things that you're doing, putting your business out in the street, mama. But some of the stuff that you can do is still doing your workouts that you're doing at the Y with swimming. That's still always really good. The same way you walk around your complex. Those are still really good ways to bring it down. I think just how Darlisha is expressing having those small goals that are obtainable, and just realizing, and that's one thing I do want you to help chime in. A lot of times I think what happens when it comes to fitness goals, the way you want to look versus, and also health goals, we're very, it has to be now, microwave. Those things take
Mm,
time. The
absolutely.
results are gonna take time. It's like I always say, it took us a while to get to where we are to make a change. It's actually gonna take us a time to see the results. And so, you agree with that?
Absolutely. 100%. Even when you're talking about, if we were to discuss like weight loss,
Hmm.
the weight gain didn't happen overnight.
Hmm.
So as you can imagine, taking it off is going to take some time. I
Hmm.
think about my experience being pregnant, my journey with both of my girls being pregnant. I gained a lot of weight during my pregnancies.
Hmm.
And I had to be patient because social media will have you out here thinking that you're supposed to bounce back
Yes,
within a month.
immediately.
And it's like, no, I didn't put on that weight overnight. And so it's definitely going to take time. You know,
Mhm.
in that I may relapse, what we call in, behavior change as well. I may be going for a while really good, and then I may backtrack into some
Mhm.
old habits again. It's
Mhm.
a process. What I want to stress, we're thinking about also behavior change. It is a process.
Mhm.
Change doesn't happen for most overnight. We also give ourselves like a time frame. I know there are different numbers out there that you may see, in
Mhm.
terms of maintaining or developing a behavior, but that varies for every individual. So your journey may be different than mine.
Mhm.
You may be able to bounce back quicker than I can. But
Mhm.
this is my path, my journey. But absolutely, in terms of weight loss, for example, you didn't gain the weight overnight. So it's going to take some time as you think about that in terms of being able to lose the weight
Mhm.
as well. But I always encourage individuals to be patient with themselves throughout the process.
Mhm.
It's not a linear process for behavior change. you may go back and forth with things, and that's a part of the process. That's a part of your journey. I don't care if you fall off. As long as you get back up, that's what counts. You can keep starting over again and again, but you're starting. We want to get you to start. And more so, how can we keep you to continue in that path is really what we come in at. And that's understanding, again, even your mindset, maybe barriers that you may be facing along the way. What type of resources do you need in this process? But yeah, going back to the original question, yes, it will not happen overnight. That is my perspective. I used to be a personal trainer. We talked about this. And so on average, maybe 1 pound, per week per se, maybe, for individuals is about right. But that varies for each person. So we do want to be realistic, even in our goals that we have. Do not be, thinking that it's going to happen so fast for you because of what you see on social media. We have to think about AI and all that today as well.
Yes. Or we have to think about people who go get their body done and then become fitness influencers.
Yes, and they're on there portraying that they did it a natural, like they did, and it went through a completely journey, and it wasn't the same for them. And so you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at different influencers out there. They have their own journey and you have your own journey. So don't get distracted. It may be motivating in a sense, but don't get distracted with that.
Right. And so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit because a lot of it is talking about comparisons and, seeing what's on social media, different things of that nature. And a lot of times when it comes to the behavioral health, because you definitely have expressed to us, it's more of like those thought process, your mindset, the goals that you set for yourself. And last month we really talked about emotional intelligence. We talked about being self-aware. And I really want to kind of talk about, like, how does being self-aware, having a self-love, how does that concept of whether it's good or bad, how does that influence someone's behavioral health?
Oh, that's a great question. I think self-awareness allows you to realize and identify that something needs to change, perhaps, right? So you're becoming knowledgeable, okay? For example, maybe I don't feel good. Something has to change. You're becoming aware that I need to make a change regarding something, regarding my health. Self-love, then, I think, is more so of that compassion piece that kind of motivates you, because we talk about self-love. If you love yourself, you will do what's necessary to take care of your body, of your temple, right? And so I think self-love leads you in that path of, truly healing your body and what that looks like for you. That's going to lead you in the right path. If we love ourselves, we love these temples that God has blessed us with, then we're going to do everything in our control and our power to truly honor our temples, right? And so I kind of see the two in that way. Like, awareness, self-awareness lets me know that, okay, I need to change something. I don't like how I've been feeling. I am tired of being sick and tired. I need to make some changes. Now, what can I do? I love myself enough to then make those changes. That's how I view it, at least.
I love that. That's perfect. Like, 'cause that is a thought process, but even in being self-aware and really having self-love, it's the same thing that we were saying with setting those goals. Those are things you have to develop over time.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we can allow other factors, kind of like he was saying, your environment, but even when it comes to your health and having healthy foods, people around us can affect how we think about ourselves and how we present ourselves as far as, self-love. And so even in those aspects, it's still like something may happen in our lives personally, or we may have been around some bad people who cause us to have low self-esteem. That is also a process of building that self-love and really being like, I'm going to do this for myself. This is for me. It's not about me trying to look like the other person. It really is taking that interpersonal, check and saying, okay, I'm doing this for me. I'm getting up and go to the gym for me. I'm going to start eating a salad for me, which
that's right.
I might need to get, be accountable. And I'm thinking about that, when you're on these behavioral health journeys, do you think like having an accountability partner makes sense?
Oh, we know from research and beyond, like research and personally speaking, having a support system definitely can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in your circle can influence you, whether you're thinking positively or negatively, that we
Mm-hmm.
know. Throughout your journey, having someone who can hold you accountable can go a long way. Shout out to my group, my support group, because for example, my CrossFit people, if I am not in there, if I'm missing 2 days out the week, I'm getting a text message, Darlisa, where are you at? We didn't see you today. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
I went running this morning,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but they're checking in, So definitely having that support around you is definitely important. It can
Mm-hmm.
be rewarding and beneficial to you just to have someone to encourage you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you can do it, or, you may not think you can, but you can do it. And I'm here. I can go to the gym with you. I don't feel like it, but I'm gonna go with you. I know you don't feel like it, but here we are together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just, having that partner sometimes will motivate you as well, because some people's personality type, and I don't know if it's people pleasing or not, but some people's personality types can be, if I'm telling, if I say, oh, Darlisha, will you go to the gym with me? And you go, yes. And then I'm like, oh, I really didn't want to go, but she said yes. So now so it's like
Yeah.
I don't want to let her down. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's one of those different things. If you won't do it for yourself, sometimes it's good to have a good partner who is actively wanting to go, that you'll be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go because I did say yes. I did make a commitment to another person. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm really gonna go. And just having that circle of people that have that same agreement and mindset
Yes.
really does help. It just helps in all aspects. So I love that you have your CrossFit group. I know my mom has her swim group that she does her aerobics for, that they sing and everything else. Because usually when I call
Yes.
her on the phone, she tells me about her crew. I feel like I know her crew at this point. That's funny. When did that happen? So,
Okay.
but it's one of those different things. Just really having, your circle having to be tight really does help. And so,
Yeah, I
I want
agree. Yeah.
so there was one thing I had thought about earlier. You were saying about knowing the benefits of behavioral health. I wanted to piggyback and go back on a conversation you had earlier. Like, how important is it for people to understand the benefits of behavioral health?
Yeah. You're probably not going to engage in something if you don't know the benefits, right,
Right.
associated with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so just being aware about and knowledgeable about the benefits as it relates to that behavior that you're maybe engaging in. I know we've been talking a lot about fitness
Mm-hmm.
and physical activity. Well, what are the benefits of this? In
Mm-hmm.
anything, the benefits should outweigh your barriers. Okay. So if you have a lot of barriers and you don't have a lot of benefits or positive, associations with that particular behavior, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably less likely to truly engage and maintain that behavior over time because there are so many barriers associated with it and not a lot of benefits. So
Mm-hmm.
being knowledgeable and aware about those benefits will help in the long run because as we talked about, life is going to life. And there are going to be moments where you just, for example, if we're talking about fitness, not feel like showing up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're just tired. Like, I do not want to do this. Personally speaking, I can come from my own experience. These last 2 weeks have been very challenging for my family, like losing a loved one.
Yeah.
Work has been very busy. There have been days I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to, I know my why. I have to dig deep, right? The
Mm-hmm.
motivation got me started. Dedication was there. But even when you're kicked off of that, your commitment, your
Mm-hmm.
consistency, what do? Dig deeper, understand your why, understanding the benefits of maybe that behavior in the first place. And that can help you during these rough, challenging times. You need to have that and know that as you're, facing life.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been challenging for me 100% these last 2 weeks. But just getting up, going, understanding like, okay, Darlisa, you're chasing longevity. You have a reason why you're doing this has really helped me to continue to go.
Yeah.
Having your support system, around you. My husband has been great with that, helping me around with the girls, making sure they're together so that I can, go to the gym, So
Yeah.
it's things like that, definitely going back to your question, the benefits, absolutely, just understanding and being aware of those benefits will be rewarding because, life is going to hit you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I want to ask a question, when it comes to goals, and you've said quite a bit of it, but just to make sure it rings for someone, sometimes people will hear things, but it doesn't really connect all the way.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about like, what are some steps that you should do? Staying with behavioral health and having those health behaviors, if I'm going to set a goal, what are some things that I should do first when I'm setting up those goals? Before I decided to get the gym membership and I go out and I go buy up all these, if I'm just setting a goal, period, what are some steps that you would recommend that I should do first when I'm even setting up a goal?
Understanding why you're setting that goal in the first place, I think
Mhm.
is the first step. Why are you trying to maybe change that behavior? We're talking about health behaviors. Why are you looking to maybe engage in that behavior in the first place? Why are you looking to change that behavior? So understanding that, I think, is an initial step. Before you even go into setting specific goals, understanding the why is key there. Once you understand why you're doing it, then you can go into goal setting. Once you get into goal setting, we want to make sure, if you all maybe heard of setting SMART goals,
Yeah.
those goals that are, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. We want to make sure that our goals are actually realistic for us. They're specific, it's something that we can attain. And as I talked about before, while we can have those long-term goals, it's important, and equally important, should I say, for us to think about some of those short-term goals that we can start with right away, to build upon, our goals to reach the long-term goals that we have identified. But definitely identifying your why in the beginning is going to be beneficial for you before you even start to develop specific goals. You have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Okay. So if somebody is really having, the barriers, can you talk a little bit about how can people get over the barriers? Because you did a fantastic job telling us the why we do it, the motivation, expressing that they are, because you talked about the barriers have to pretty much outweigh, what you're doing, kind of like pros and cons. Like definitely the pros have to outweigh the cons. But if we're
Yes.
having certain barriers to a goal, what are some of your suggestions of how do we really get over the barrier? Because some of it could be, I don't have a support system. I don't even have like good friends, or I don't have resources. How do we get past those barriers? Because this has to be done. The goal has to be done. Sometimes it can be life or death, in some of
Yeah.
these situations and some of the things we're trying to achieve. How do we kind of get past those barriers?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, again, it depends on the individual and what those
Yeah.
barriers are, to I'm thinking, as a health educator, for me to really talk about how to overcome those barriers, I need to understand what the barriers are in the first place. We can talk about what resources you may need, to help you address those specific barriers, So outlining and understanding those barriers will be key before understanding what specific resources or actions we may need to take to addressing those barriers.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's more like an overview,
Yeah.
but it would vary for each individual, in terms of how we can address those specific barriers. Your barriers may be different from the next person. You may need resources, the other person may need something else. So understanding what the barriers are, and then let's talk about what's needed in order to address those particular, barriers.
Makes sense. So I think in a sense it is kind of the I think we both can agree that even though you have a barrier, there's always a way to kind of get out of that barrier. There's always several different solutions that you can have
Yeah.
for a barrier. For example, finances. That's lives for majority of the people who's probably going to be watching us today. Is there's that
Yeah.
financial barrier, whether we're talking about food or fitness or different things of that nature. That's going to be a barrier for a lot of
Yeah.
folks, or just having resources, or where do I even go depending on where I live. Or some people just
Right.
say, physically I would love to be more in shape, but baby, I got bad knees, what we finna do? So I think
Right.
it's all these different things of
Yes.
knowing what it is, and then just
Right.
finding those other solutions. Financially,
Hmm.
we talked about, hey, I may not be able to have fresh produce, but I've seen several comments, and even the ones that you said, that Aldi's is a good way to go. Some people may not
Hmm.
realize, Aldi's actually does have good produce. And when you go and see the
Absolutely.
prices, you're like, no, I can't afford this. Or finding a way to
Hmm.
budget for your health
Hmm.
really makes sense. Or maybe I can't go to the gym because there isn't one, and I'm just not going to pay. First it was $9.99. Now, I mean, Planet is almost like $15. And it's like, what
Ooh.
happened to being $10?
Yes.
So it's like
Yeah.
that, that doesn't fit into the budget. But us talking of saying how you can go, how
There are
you
things you
can,
can do. Yeah. Things you
how
can do at home,
things you
right?
can do at home. Like if you have a
Yes.
phone, you have YouTube.
Yes.
If you have the internet, you have YouTube. And you can do a lot
Yes.
of those things at home. And just like you were saying, Dr. Doss, don't bark down on walking. We
No.
all, we all can figure out ways to walk, and starting slow. Maybe it's I just do a walk around my neighborhood. I just go around
Right.
the corner and walk. Okay, well, I figured out that piece. Okay, well, maybe I go a little bit longer. And then
Hmm.
sometimes we can always find, like, maybe I always tell people, if you can find a neighborhood high school that has a track, a walking track, wonders.
Hmm.
Wonders. And then, when you're at home, there's various different things you can do in your house, and then just budget everything else accordingly. But I think with
Absolutely.
every barrier, there is another solution to it. It's just
Yes.
taking the time and really focusing on it. It's going to help you get
Yeah.
home.
And you may need to work with someone else, right, to
Mhm,
discuss what those solutions may be in terms of resources
mhm,
that you need to maybe address that specific barrier. So, this is where maybe your support system, if you have one, could come into the picture. If
mhm,
not, working with, if you have a physician or, a health professional that you can work with to maybe identify some potential solutions.
mhm.
Because sometimes people just don't know,
Yeah.
right? Like if we're talking about nutrition and we know that there's a financial barrier. I mean, we have we have different things throughout the community. I'm
Yeah.
still learning about St. Louis, but even I know where I was coming from before Indiana, even in some of the farmers market, they were giving away free produce.
Hmm.
Like not everyone knows about that. These are
Hmm.
options that's available to
Hmm.
you if you want to maybe get some healthier foods. Or shout out to my mom. She is a person that cannot stand animals like dogs and things like that. So she is not the outdoor person necessarily, but she'll pull up the YouTube and
Hmm.
she'll walk. They have different exercises that you can do within your home if that's your
Hmm.
comfort level.
Yeah.
But again, just understanding, what potential barriers you have, and then maybe working through with someone to identify potential solutions, I think will
Hmm.
go a long way. Yeah.
I love that. So we're coming towards the end, but I think this conversation has been amazing. So I definitely appreciate, you taking out the time to tell us so many good things. I think some other people are saying, Sue Lord is really good. If
Okay.
they're all, I think they're getting ready to near close, but there's always the desire to do more and be more mobile and not having those limitations. And those things do take time. Just finding different resources, and you can a lot of things. One, from what you said, Dr. Doss, is finding those resources and not being afraid to ask. I just think,
Yes.
not being afraid to ask, like, where can I find stuff? Being just able to
Mhm.
ask this, and people, what do you do? What are you doing? And just kind of listening and just making it your own, or going online. I mean, the phone, this thing right here is a resource of just
Yes.
endless things of stuff that you would need. So even if you're saying, I need to work out at home, or I want to do this, but I have issues with my shoulder. I have issues with this. You can type in low bearing, for shoulders, low bearing,
Yes.
exercises for knees or whatever is going on. They will show you several different things that you can do at a low cost. And if it's weights, Five Below has really helped out so many people, get
Yeah.
things that they need for working out that's under $5 or near $5, because Five Below isn't not Five Below anymore. But
It's not. Yeah.
it's not, but
Yes.
it's close to $5 as it used to
Okay.
be. So so I think different things of that nature. Yeah, so
Yes.
different things like that. So Kim, definitely, if you know different things, reach out to Kimberly or somebody else that's in the church or
Mhm.
see this podcast. I mean, feel free to go
Yes.
to the When Women Believe page, and I don't care, put posts under there to talk about the different
Yes.
resources that you have. And I think I'll just make a post that talks about what are those different resources so people can
Mhm.
chime in. But to talk
Mhm.
more about you, because we've definitely, I don't want to take up so much of the time, because I said I would keep it at the time limit. uh,
It went by really fast. I'm
it
like,
went by so fast, and
yeah.
that's the trouble with these. It's such a good conversation that it's just like it feels like 20 minutes, and it's like, no, it's been
Yeah.
an hour, shockingly.
Yes.
But I hope you guys have really benefited from the conversation. But I do want to talk about future when it comes to you. What are your expectations for the future? What's next for you?
Oh gosh, just continuing to grow in every way,
Mhm.
spiritually,
Yeah.
professionally, my personal life. So just continuing to do what it is that God has for me and being
Yeah.
willing to go into those spaces. That's what's next for me, truly. So be on the lookout. God has been opening up some doors for me, and I'm really excited about it. So whatever God has for me, I am going into that direction. Absolutely.
I love that. And what is a main message that you would like for listeners to take away from this conversation? Like, what is the takeaway you hope, if they didn't remember anything else you said, this is what I want you to
Yes.
know?
We talked about, health behaviors. With that, I just want to emphasize that change takes time, and we apply that with health behaviors. It's not going to happen for most people overnight. Please be patient with yourself. Look for resources to help you throughout your journey. Remember that it is your journey, and try not to compare that to others. But understanding that it takes time, but it is possible. And always, as you think about changing a behavior, understand the why.
Yeah,
I think that would be beneficial for you as you go throughout your process.
I love that. I don't want it to end. Like,
I
I could talk to you all
know.
day. But if somebody does, they take away from this conversation are just like, I need to know more from her. Like, how do I get in touch with Dr. Doss? Like, what do I need to do? So how could someone get more information from you and what you do? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I am on social media. I know we're talking. I know we're laughing inside. Okay. But I am on social media. So you can find me on, Facebook. I'm also on Instagram as well. But through my email,
Mhm.
drdoss17@gmail.com. So that's drdoss17@gmail.com. You can always email me that way. If you are like in different spaces that I'm going into, like my church, TCOC, you know where to find me
Yeah.
there, right? And then also in other spaces. So please reach out to me. You can reach out to
Mhm.
me here, Messenger. I will respond.
Yes. If you go on Messenger, she definitely will respond, because
Yes.
we're cracking up because she does like to take a social media
I
break.
do take
I'm
a
not mad
break.
at her.
So I do take breaks. That's a part of taking care of self as
Yes.
well. So I do take breaks here and there, whatever is needed for me in the season that I'm going through. I listen to whatever God is telling me to do. So nonetheless, when I do come back on, if I do take a break, I will see your message.
Or you can email. The email
Yes, or
will stay
email,
on.
and I will
So
see that right away.
yes.
Absolutely.
I'm like, the email might be your best bet. That's why they're like cracking up, because I was like, no, she
Yes.
just recently got off a break just for
I
us.
did. Yes, I did. Yes.
So if you do want to reach out to her, I would definitely put all the information into these the subject for the podcast. So if you see this and you're watching the rewatch, you can definitely, I'll put the information there for you that she is on social media. I think she has I have her tagged just about everywhere, but I'll put the email on there as a way to reach you as well. And any last remarks? I first want to just tell you thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. I knew this was going to be an amazing topic. I had already knew that you were going to do fantastic on this. So I just appreciate you, you know, the work and journeys that you're doing that most people don't even know about in public health. So if you go back to the page, please make sure, if you did not read the article of her and her husband and the impact they're doing on public health, please make sure that you go back and read that, because it's such an amazing article. And just to know that she is juggling all of the things, being a husband, being a wife, you know, having, you know, children, you know, really taking the opportunity to do CrossFit and just really understanding her why and juggling all those different things. Don't think that just because she's here, there are a lot of different barriers. That's why she's able to talk about them. She didn't talk about all of her personal barriers, but do know just by all the titles she has alone, those are barriers within themselves. And she's still finding a way to say, this is what I need to do for me. And that's one of the huge reasons why I wanted to do When Women Believe, is just really having the conversation. I know I was talking to you about what the platform was all about, is really getting women to understand that you still have a purpose and plan for your life that may be beyond just being a wife and being a mother and doing those traditional roles. It's like, what are the things that God has desired or put in place in you as far as your purpose? And so I keep finding amazing women such as yourself that is saying, you know, I am choosing, you know, me. I also have a purpose beyond, you know, those things. And this is how I'm trying to walk those things out. So again, thank you so much for being an example of, you can have all of the things, you know, you can have all of the things, regardless to what happened in childhood, regardless to, you know, health scares. I have a why, I have a purpose. And even what you're saying right now, I still have a future. You know, I'm still going for what God has for me, and I'm still going to do it regardless to all the titles that I'm having. So I'm so excited to see that.
No,
So
thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on here. We talked about stretching. This is stretching me in a good way, you know, and I truly appreciate even everyone who tuned in or will tune into this podcast as well. Yes. So thank you so much. This has been great.
So thank you. Thank you guys so much again. Thank you guys for watching. For those that watched live and had the comments, we truly appreciate that you guys didn't leave us here talking to ourselves. So we're glad that you guys came. For anyone who watches the rewatch, feel free to comment. I still look at your comments all the time and love to see the interaction beyond here. Facebook does take the lives down after 30 days. So you can follow us on YouTube, where I will be uploading this amazing conversation as others. And look forward to us next month, where I will have another guest. I believe we're going to be talking about veganism. So for those that may want to take the transition, so for those that might want to take the transition over and see the benefits of, you know, getting away from, you know, meat and going over to more of a plant-based lifestyle. I can't say that I'm there yet, but I do want to get intrigued to learn more of how to basically how to eat to live, not just to eat. You know, I just want to find out better ways of how to eat to live. And so that's what we'll be talking about next month. But until then, thank you guys so much for joining When Women Believe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.